everyone, welcome if you've joined me. This is going to be my first ever Move Better Every Day, half an hour, just a little snippet to try and literally get you to do that, to move better every day, to feel better in control of your body every day. You may have noticed that I'm not in training gear, I'm in my regular gear, I'm in my jeans. They are quite stretchy, but this is about movement patterns that we use in everyday life, and today we're going to look at getting down to the floor and getting back up again. And that's it, we're just going to spend a little bit of time on that. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a test that you can do. I don't need to do it now, especially if you haven't done any exercise. I'm already quite warmed up, so I'm going to show you. But it's a test of can you get down to the floor and can you get back up again without using your hands. So for me, the way I do it is I tuck my back foot in, I sort of take this little curtsy and I'm all the way down, and then I reverse it to come back up. I didn't need to use my hands. And then I'll just do it on the other side just for completeness. So those sort of movements, all the things that I'm doing within my body there are the sort of things that I'm going to try and do in the Move Better Everyday classes. Just to help you move better in everyday life. You might be putting your socks on in the morning. You need to be able to balance on one leg. You need to be able to lift the foot up. You need to be able to have enough mobility in the hips. So today we're looking at squats and lunges primarily, which we're going to use to get down to the floor. So when we think about a squat, or getting down to the floor, or even picking something up from the floor. So a squat is a really functional movement. So we want to be, ideally, we would mostly, if we weren't thinking about it too much, we would bend the back and we would reach down to the floor and then we would stand up. And generally if we're picking something up a little bit heavier, then quite often you might have strained your back doing that sort of movement. But the change in the shape of your back is a thing that we want to try and avoid, because over time that puts too much strain, especially on the lower back muscles. So whenever we're taking either a squat to get down to the floor, or a squat to pick something up, or even a crouch to get down to the floor, just to get lower, ideally we want to keep the back in the same shape. So in order to achieve that, we want to make the movement, the change in your body happen at the hips. So it's called a hip hinge. So I'm just sending my bottom back. If you've got a wall behind you, it's quite nice to send your butt back to the wall. The weight is in the heels. The shape of my spine has not changed at all at any time here. And just do this with me, even if you're one of my regulars and you're absolutely 100% used to this stuff, then just give it a go, because it's going to help us warming up for the whole thing that we're going to do today. So sending the bottom back, hinging from the hips even, without anything else changing. So the shape of my back is staying exactly the same. I'm a little bit braced, a little bit switched on, which hopefully happens naturally. The weight is back in the heels, like I say. If you pitch forward, so this is the weight in my toes, that actually puts quite a lot of strain on the lower back. We actually want to send the bottom back so that my head pretty much stays above my feet. So that's a little mini hip hinge. Let's take that into some narrow squats. I'm going to go this way. In fact, I'm going to go that way, sorry. And we're going to send the bottom back, and this time you're going to bend your knees. But ultimately, the shape of my spine is exactly the same. Why do we squat? Why do we need to squat? Because we want to pick something up off of the floor. So this is why I'm reaching my hands out in front of me, and it's also a bit of a counterbalance. If you have your hands behind your back and you're squatting down, it will feel a little bit uncomfortable. It'll maybe make you drop your shoulders too far forwards to counterbalance that. And actually it's quite nice, hands behind the back, reach the arms forwards and feel that shift. Just take that shift for me, from front to back of the feet. So when my hands are behind my back, my weight goes on more into the balls of my feet. I reach the arms forwards, keeping the shoulders down, and now the weight's right back in my heels. Another thing that people always talk about is the knees. Ideally, when you're squatting, not all the time, because the knee joint can fold over completely. It was designed to do that as well. But when we're squatting, in order to keep your knees from not straining too much, you want to send the bottom back, hinge, take all of the action out here, and keep those knees ideally above your ankles so that you're there. If you're really far forwards and your spine is upright, there's a lot of strain. There's a lot of strain on the quads. Ideally, we want to use the back line of the body. My heels come up here as well because I've got really short Achilles tendons, but that will feel completely different. Again, have a little play with it, have a little go. This is what these movement classes are all about. Move better every day, in your everyday clothes. It's not designed to get you hot and sweaty, it's just for you to have a little explore of your body. But hopefully I will keep you nice and warm for the relevant bits. So let's just take a wider squat now. So feet are wide, slightly outside shoulder width apart, toes are going out slightly to the corners, and the same principles apply. So send the bottom back, drop your hips down, keep your back nice and upright. Ideally, we're aiming towards the floor. Take a couple of these if you can. Now, it might be that today, or hopefully just today, because otherwise you're going to be prepared, that you can't, your trousers are your jeans, if you're wearing jeans, and they're too tight and they're not stretchy like these ones are, that you can't actually dip down all the way. So maybe try another time in your tracky bottoms or whatever. You want to be comfortable, but this is just about getting everything moving. Send that bottom back. So send the bottom back, and then as we progress with this, try and drop the hips down a little bit lower, so from the front, a little bit lower than your knees if you can. We're aiming for the wonderful deep squat all the way down. My heels ping off as I come down into this because, again, my rubbish Achilles and tight calves, but it's a work in progress for me. But ideally, we're heels down, there you go, I've just about got it, and then you want to push those knees back over the toes. Great, so standing up. So that last little section might have been a bit too much for you. Let's just take some warming up of hips, knees and ankles, which is going to help us with all of the stuff that we're doing today. So starting off, feet wide, shoulder width apart, and just take a great big circle of your hips. So even if I'm changing direction, even if you don't do anything else today, this is an amazing thing to do. Just a little break when you're putting your kettle on. So this is in my anti-sitting video as well. We're just mobilising, getting the blood flow to the whole pelvic region. I've changed direction again, sorry I didn't tell you that part. And I call this the hula hoop circle. So imagine you've got a hula hoop around your hips, and you're trying to push your hips into every part of the inside of that hula hoop. So you're going all the way to the side, all the way forwards, to the other side, and all the way backwards. But keeping the shoulders fairly still, and go the other way. So we're quite good at the side and the back bit, but try and just open up those hips a little bit at the front. Great, so let's bring the feet and knees together, bend the knees. Now take a nice circle of your knees, with your hands on your knees. So same sort of thing, you've got a little mini, very mini actually, hula hoop around your knees. I'm going to go to the side to show you. So I keep my legs bent. But also while you're doing this, think about what's going on in your feet. So as you're taking your knees over to one side, you're rolling over onto the outside edge of your feet, or the outside edge of one foot, the inside edge of the other foot. So there's this lovely reciprocal movement going on in the ankles and the feet. Everything is getting nice and warmed up. Change direction twice each time, so we do 4 times. All the way round. Brilliant. And then standing on one leg, quite relaxed, circling the ankle. I'm bending over at my toes. And again, you can feel it's coming right up into the hips. Changing direction there. So I'm bending the toes over. This is just letting everything be nice and relaxed. Again, getting the blood flow to the right places. Changing legs. Also, we're standing on one leg, which is a good thing to do, but you're challenging your balance. Although you're thinking about what's going on at this ankle, hopefully, changing direction, you're challenging your balance on one leg. But actually we're going to do all of these things again on one leg as opposed to two legs. Great, changing direction again. Brilliant. And just noticing for yourself, especially when we're doing one side, is one side tighter than the other? Is one side a little bit more crunchy today, or maybe hurts a little bit? Maybe you've got an injury on one side and that's, you know, the scar tissue is still there. Just work through that. This is all about exploring your body as well, getting to know your body. Perfect. Okay, so let's quite quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is part of the warm-up, and just we're going to come back to those deep squats. But standing on one leg, in fact, bring your feet a little bit closer together, take both hips round. So because we've got the legs a bit closer together, your hula hoop has become a bit smaller. Now go onto one leg, and you could have that leg in the air, or you could just have the top of your big toe touching. Essentially, I'm trying to take my hula hoop just on the one leg, and it's quite challenging. We're just going to go in both directions, once each way for this one. So if you can manage to have that leg completely in the air, perfect. And again, you're going to notice there's the movement in the knee and the ankle and the foot. It's all going on. Let's swap legs. So come back to each time. It's actually quite important to just put both feet down. Remind your brain how this goes. Good, and then on the other side. So for me, this is my tighter side on my hip. So it feels a little bit more challenging. Changing direction. I'm just going to put my big toe on the floor as a little bit of a stabilizer. Good, and then we're going to do the same thing with the knees. Bring your feet and knees together again. Remind yourself what happens when it's both knees. And then we're there. We're on one leg. This is weird. Think about so we're circling the knee as in the same way we just did with the hip, but think more about what's actually going on in your foot. All this lovely mobilising and getting the blood flow. I've changed direction. And again, I've got a little bit more reliance on this foot that's in the floor. I'm probably 95% on my one leg, 5% just helping me to stabilise so I don't fall over. This is harder work on the ankle. Let's go to the other side. So think about the circle around your foot as you're going all the way around your foot. So you're going to the outside edge, you're going to your toes, you're going to the inside edge, back onto the heel. Change direction. The hips are pretty much doing the same thing, but just not quite as big because the focus is on the knee. Brilliant. Okay, give those legs a bit of a shake. Now let's stay with the squat for the moment. So I'm just going to go slightly on a diagonal. Nice wide position, dropping down into that squat. Hopefully that should all feel a little bit more comfortable now. So keeping the chest up, pushing the heels down to come up. So all the way down. Can you get those hips a little bit lower? And keep those heels down. So I've managed it more this time. Maybe elbows on the inside and push your knees back. Push your knees out. So you want your knees over your toes, maybe swapping from side to side. And then if you can, if you're down this low, great. Bring your hands to the floor and come forward so your weight's a bit more on your hands. So for me that means that my heels pop off. But as I know it's just wiggle from side to side a little bit. So moving from side to side, make sure the knee is staying over the toes, so you don't want that there. It's not the end of the world, but we want to work in good alignment. I'm not saying that can never happen, because it absolutely can. but that's when you want it to happen, not as a default with that ankle collapsing and the knee rolling in. So I'm moving from side to side a little bit, and then I'd like you to just bring your weight onto your hands, walk out forwards, and if you can, lower both knees. And then we're just going to push back from here, walking the hands back closer to the knees, onto the toes, into your deep squat, and then come upright if you can. So this is the full version, the more advanced version if you like. So all the way down, and I've automatically gone into more of a crouch. So a crouch is when you lift your heels up, that's what I'm going to call it, but you might be able to have your heels down. And I'm taking the weight forwards, I'm walking out forwards, so there's more weight through my hands and my shoulders. I'm going to drop my knees down, staying in that all fours position, and then push back over my toes and standing up. So here's an easier version of that if you like. So dropping down, you might not be anywhere near as low as I am with your squat. Leave your hips quite high, take your hands to the floor, walk your hands out, get your shoulders over your hands, and then lower both knees with control. Now you're on the floor, you're on all fours, hopefully you're feeling quite stable and secure. From here, lift those hips up, walk your hands back so the weight is on your feet again, primarily in your heels. If you can, lift your chest, drop your bottom down, and then come up. So let's just do a couple more of those if you can. So keeping the chest up, drop down, I'm going to come into my squat, either hips high or hips down. So this is a bending over of the toes. Again, that might not be available to you. Do what you can. Walk the hands back and coming up. Fantastic. Good work. Doesn't the time fly when you are enjoying yourself? Okay, let's have a little look at lunges. So starting with a static lunge. So I'm just going to use the wall, put one finger on the wall behind me. Legs nice and wide. I'm facing my front is here, hips and shoulders are square to that front. Legs are really wide, my body is in the middle. I'm equally weighted between both feet. And then I'm just going to bend both knees the same amount. Ideally, we're dropping that back knee down to the floor, but maybe that's not available to you just yet. Straightening both legs. So this is the beginning of a nice, strong, aligned lunge. It's tough. Let's swap to the other side. I could have just stayed where I was actually. I don't know why I turned around to the other side. Just put the other leg in front. So if you're not able to bend both, drop that back knee down to the floor, or just brush to the floor, make sure you're bending both knees equally. I see this a lot. Position of the knees, really, really important. This knee is above or behind that ankle. That's the key thing. If you're all the way forwards, it's going to put too much strain on that knee. And again, it's not that you can never do that, it's just for a good lunge, you want to be a 90-degree angle on both legs. Great, if that's okay with you, I'm going to come away from the wall for a little bit. So one leg in front, one leg behind. So ideally, we're kneeling down. Here's another way of getting down to the floor. Kneeling down, maybe bringing your knees together so that you're kneeling up, and then put the other foot in front in order to get up from here. So you might want to cheat and use, not cheat, but you might want to use a piece of furniture or a chair or something, or the wall if you're still at the wall. But if you can, remember our goal is to come up without actually touching the floor. Pitch your weight all the way forwards into this front foot and then up you come. So let's now try. You're stepping back, you're kneeling down, so you could still be here at the wall. In fact, I'm going to stay at the wall for the moment, or whatever you're using for support. Stepping back, kneeling down if you can. Bringing your knees together, swapping legs over so that the leg that was behind is now in front, and pitching the weight forwards to stand. Leading with the other leg, stepping back, kneeling down, knees together, pitching the weight forwards and coming up. You might have noticed that let's do two more, once each side. When I'm down there, I relax my toes. Again, that might not be something that you're comfortable with, so you can leave those toes curled under. In fact, I'm going to leave the other foot curled under. So you might want to push off with that back foot. But if you can't bend your toes over that much, then focus more on the weight coming into the front leg. Ideally, so your lunge, style of lunge or style of getting up on the floor, from the floor, even getting down, might be to put your hands onto this leg for support. Not ideal because you're probably just not in great alignment and you're relying on the pressure through the leg, especially when you're coming up. Yeah, that's where you want your weight. You want your weight to be into this leg. So you don't want to be pushing down on it at the same time. It's sort of counterintuitive. Great, another way of practicing your lunges, again if that isn't available to you, stepping back, and again you could use the support of a wall or something, stepping back and touching your, imagine that you're doing your laces, so you're there, and then you come upright. You step back, you touch your laces. Now what's quite nice about this is when you're here, when you're touching your hands to your top of your foot, I'm resting my chest on my thigh, and it feels quite supported. Think about what's going on in this hip. All of that hip hinge thing is going on again. So resting the chest on the thigh from the front, talking about alignment, you want to take that leg back in line with your hips, maybe slightly out to the side. If you try and do your lunges on a tightrope, it's really difficult to balance. So take it out to the side. Take it slightly wider if you need to, but make sure both feet, the toes, are facing forwards. If that back heel is dropped in, your hip is opened out, that's going to make everything awkward, and it's probably going to change the alignment. It just changes everything. So we want good square front to back alignment. So you're dropping back, resting your chest, if you can, your tummy, whatever, on your thigh, and then stepping up, stepping back. So that heel wants to drop in, and when that heel drops in, this hip opens out. That's not good because it will change in this leg as well. Stepping back, dropping down, chest, tummy onto your thigh, creasing at the hip, taking that hip hinge, and then stepping forwards. Brilliant. So that brings me on to the next one, which is stepping back and coming down onto all fours. Hold on a minute, kneeling down, switching legs, standing, shoelaces. Yeah, okay, so if you're coping with the shoelace one, same thing, but then try and keep the back a little bit more upright. So you'll find that that knee, that foot automatically goes back. Great, and then you take the hands away, much tougher on the balance. A good, strong, perfectly aligned lunge is a tough exercise to do, but it's a great test for everything being in the right place. And it's a good movement pattern to have under your belt, so you're making it in all fours. Great, so we have got squat, crouch down, I've done that one. From kneeling, okay, so we're going to come down to kneeling. Kneeling and then all fours. So let's take the stepping back into the lunge, kneeling down, bringing both knees together, coming out onto all fours. So once you're on the floor, what are the alternatives? So this, obviously, great thing to be able to do. If you can't quite get there, maybe because of ankles, I've got a few people who their ankle just will not straighten out there. It's very awkward. If the ankle is quite set in that way, it's really quite difficult to change that. One way of getting around it is to put a cushion underneath the front of your ankles, so that you're here, and to I'll just come back a little bit, just gradually work your way towards it. So pretty much everyone, hopefully, fingers crossed, should be able to get onto all fours, hopefully. If you've got bad knees, have some padding under the knees, but just give it a go. So from here, if this position, that position of kneeling all the way back is a problem for you, just test the waters a little bit. Keep your weight on your hands, maybe bring them a little bit closer to your knees. Take the hips back. Here again, hip hinge. So important. Hip hinge, hip hinge, hip hinge. Don't ever lose that thought and that process of that being the bit that changes. It's so important. So I'm just pushing my bottom back towards my heels, stressing, stretching out thighs, knees, whatever, just testing the water a little bit. And you've always got that option to come forwards a bit. Great, so if that is okay for you, we're moving on into just getting down onto the floor. So you might have come onto all fours. From here, just take your hips over to one side. I'm going over to one side. In fact, I'm going to take my hand out a little bit more. Going over to one side and lying across that thigh so that then I'm on my hip. And then I'm going to sit back up again. Taking the arm out to the side so you've got a bit more support. Rolling across, so you roll across the knee. You use the bulky part of your thigh, the big muscles in your thighs, to rest down on your hips. Yeah, and then come back up again. So at this point, you might have suddenly thought, oh, my wrists are feeling a little bit weak. And again, all part of the same thing. Let's just, if you can, so sitting here if you can, perfect thing to be able to do. Just, you're on the floor, perfect position, keep practicing it. If you don't use it, you will lose it. You might be kneeling up here. You might have found yourself sitting on the floor in some position. You might need to sit in a chair, absolutely fine. Sitting on a cushion, sitting on a little puff like this if you have one. But we're talking about wrists. So, fingers clasped, heels of your palms together. Keep your elbows in and down and draw a figure of 8 with your knuckles almost. Brilliant. And then go the other way, which is always weird. And I'm not even sure if I'm drawing a figure of 8 going the other way. Sort of am. Perfect. And then make some weird Halloween, we're sort of near Halloween-ish, make some weird scrunching things going on with your fingers. Yes. Brilliant. Okay, so I would like to finish off today with this movement going around from side to side on the floor. So you've come onto all fours. You're going to roll across onto one hip, and then you're just going to roll across your bottom and open out, so feet are together, open out your knees and then come back onto all fours. So you've sort of done a semicircle, and then I'm going to go back the way I've come from. So hip down, knees up, feet close-ish together, and then rolling over. So you're on your hands, the weight is on the hands. Going to the other side, I'm taking this hand out to help me, support me, rolling down. Roll across, open up the knees, push back onto all fours. And again, back to where we started. I'm going to do that same thing facing this way so that you're going the same way as me. So let's go onto our right hip. Roll across onto your left knee, come up onto all fours. Drop onto your left hip. Roll across, drop your right knee down first, up onto all fours, going the other way. I'm nearly hitting my head on the wall. Onto your left hip, roll around, onto that left knee, and then right knee first, then the left knee joins. Drop back up down onto your right hip, cross your buttocks, left knee first, back onto all fours. Have a little twiddle around. Brilliant. So that will bring us back to the movement. So one last thing, that's along those same sort of lines. You're down on the floor. So we've done you come down on both feet into a crouch. You come down onto your hands and your knees. You push back and reverse the same way. We've done from the standing, you've gone down to one knee, brought the other knee down, you swap the legs over, you're coming up. So now let's say you are already on the floor and you're going to roll from side to side. In fact, I'm going to go this way again. So watching me first, drop the right hip down, roll exactly as we did, but this time I'm rolling over to the side. I'm going to put my left thigh down and bring my right leg forwards. So I'm facing the side of the room, so you should be able to see me this way. Right leg forwards, I'm pushing off using my left hand, pushing off into a sort of lunge position here. And the door and the wall is well, it's actually quite handy because it's going to help me come up. And then I'm reversing that, dropping back down, rolling over, back onto all fours. I'm going to go the other way. Left hip, you'll be facing away from the camera. Put the right leg down. So I'm tucking the right foot in a little bit. Left foot is forwards, pushing off that back hand into a sort of lunge. And I'm a bit squashed up in the corner, and I'm sure you are as well. Let's finish off this movement so that we're going to come up to stand with that and then reverse back down. But I'm going to come over to this way, this side of the room. I'm going to travel that way, so this will give me a little bit more space. Hopefully you've got as much space as this. So from all fours, you drop down onto the right hip. You face away from the camera as you roll away. You pull that left foot in, you stretch your right foot out, you push off into the lunge and then into a stand, using any bit of equipment if you want to. So I've come up on that right leg. I'm going to reverse the movement back down. Left leg goes out. I'm dropping down onto that knee. Taking my hips back, dropping back onto my left hip, rolling across, left hip, rolling across back to all fours. One more time this way, a little bit faster. Roll across, open out, push the right foot forwards, stand up. Left foot goes back, and this is where I tend to put my foot flat, so I'm rolling down through my shin, my hip, roll across, back onto all fours. How are we doing? Going the other way. So you're facing this way. So on all fours, drop the left hip down, face away from the camera, lift those knees up. Put the weight through your right thigh, knee, shin, and drive the weight forwards onto that left leg. Use any piece of equipment if you need to, or furniture I should say, sorry, to stand up. Reverse it. So you could go back on the ball of the foot to kneel down. You could do the shoelace thingy here. Get that right knee down, drop back so your hip is down. Open up, back to all fours. One more, little bit faster. From all fours, left hip down. Face away from the camera, onto your right knee, left foot is forwards, you are coming up to stand, ideally on one leg. Coming all the way back down, drop the hips back down, rolling round, and there you have it. So, have a little go maybe now, with those tools available to you. Have a go of the sitting down to the floor and the standing up test without using your hands. Not a problem if you do use your hands. So my favoured position is sort of the curtsy. So I'm going to go down onto that back knee, that I'm actually on my shin, I'm sitting my bottom back, and then I'm going to pitch the weight forwards, a bit like what we just did, to come up. I'm going to do it once on the other side as well. All the way down, sit back, all the way up. Some people do it cross legs. Yeah, have a go. See how you can manage it. Hope you've enjoyed. Hope to see you again very soon. Thank you very much for joining me for Move Better Every Day.